I'm Jacob Tender.
I'm Mike Amate. Welcome back to Bantha Fodder. We are on episode 21?
Question mark?
Question mark? Let's go with it. 21. All right.
Yeah, what are we talking about tonight, Mike?
Oh, cue that music, Jacob. You know what that sound means?
Means that we've won the war and all of the battle droids are broken.
In a way, yes, we did win the war. Or should I say I won the war. I have finished Bloodline. Remember, do you remember that?
Yes, how could I forget? It's been a year of reminders.
Yeah, I finished it. And to be fair, I finished it like about a month ago, but then it had been so long since I started the book that I actually had to review my notes on it to remember how it started and the things that I thought were interesting about it.
Right, and I tried to do the same thing because, like I said, it's been about a year since I read it myself, and I went to read my notes, and unfortunately, all of my notes were mysteriously deleted from my ebook reading app. So.
Oh no, this is going to be a fiasco and a half.
So essentially we find ourselves in a unique situation wherein Mike knows everything about the book and Jake doesn't.
And me knowing everything about this book is a big stretch here. It's at
least fresh in your mind.
Maybe. Not really.
Well, I hope so. I hope at least something stuck. Otherwise, this is going to be an interesting episode. Could be short.
It's going to be good. I actually, I'll cut to the chase really quick before we talk about some news. I did like this book. And so for those of you expecting typical pessimistic Mike, you're going to get something different today.
Yay!
Yeah, so before we jump into Bloodline discussions, before we jump into a discussion about a book that's over a year old at this point, let's get into some Star Wars news that has happened in the past, since our last episode.
Okay, can I start with one?
Yes, please.
All right. This one's interesting, and it kind of piggybacks on an older episode that we did when we talked about Elstree 1976, that documentary about sort of the behind the scenes characters of Star Wars and how they kind of interact with the saga today at cons and whatnot.
That's a good episode. I enjoyed that one.
I did too. The more I've listened to it, I think that was good. I've grown a little more fond of the documentary since, because I think it is kind of a unique look. But one of the subjects of the film was Dave Prowse, of course, who plays Darth Vader. And at some point, long, long ago, Dave Prowse pissed off George Lucas somehow.
Ask Mr. Lucas, yeah. But it's I've obviously upset him at some stage or other, and they just feel I'm sort of persona non grata at those two shows. It's the only shows that I'm not there. I don't do.
It's all sort of conjecture. We've talked about our theories. We've talked about the persisting theories online as to why that happened. But somebody recently has started a change.org petition called "Make Things Right with Dave Prowse," and essentially the description of this petition is basically, Dave Prowse is going to die soon. Let's let him back into the cons. Because
that's like very bittersweet for David Prowse. Like, oh man, you're probably going to die soon. Like just a constant reminder that he's about to kick it.
Truthfully,
he seemed in good health in the documentary. Like, I know things can decline quickly in a human being, but it's like, I don't think we need to be alarmed about this, do we?
Yeah, well, maybe. I think I signed it, and the reason for that is because he is getting old, and not that I go to a lot of the conventions or anything, but I would like to go to Star Wars Celebration in 2019, and I think it would be really awesome to meet Dave Prowse there. I would love to. Right now, he's just kind of resigned himself to the lower level cons, the ones that Lucasfilm aren't putting on, rather.
Or Disney, I guess, at this point.
Sure, yeah, Disney and Lucasfilm. So basically, this petition is calling on George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm to resolve the situation with Dave Prowse and make amends, because, whatever it was that actually happened between them, seems like he's a pretty good guy, and, he played an important role in the saga, so let him in.
I mean, to be fair, he did say in the Elstree documentary that his most rewarding role in life has been the crossing guard spokesperson for
Do you think
United
that's what
Kingdom.
it was? Do you think that's what pissed off George Lucas?
Yeah, George is like, I gave you the role of of 10 lifetimes, wouldn't get Darth Vader, and you were spandex wearing crossing guard, and that's your thing.
Who knows? But we'll have a link here to that petition if you want to sign it. I think it's a good cause. So far, 359 people have signed it.
Oh wow, we're moving up the ranks there.
We're moving. I don't know if there's goals for this thing, but yeah.
All right, I got one. Check this out. There was this thing that came up on Entertainment Weekly recently regarding the droid swap. Now,
the droid swap.
Yeah, so what that is all about is Rian Johnson, director of The Last Jedi, comes out in December, apparently asked for a droid swap to occur at the end of The Force Awakens, the film immediately preceding The Last Jedi. And, I mean, we don't know why, but the droid swap that this is about is originally the finale of The Force Awakens features R2-D2 going with Rey to Octu. That was supposed to be BB-8.
Okay. Why? I mean, I understand, at least in my own head, why R2-D2 would be the droid to send. I can see why Rian Johnson would want that for his story. I think that there's probably going to be some significant reason for that, but even a sentimental reason for R2-D2 to, rejoin his master, that's sort of a nice thing, and that's why I thought that he was there. But why would BB-8 be going there at all?
I think the idea is to sell more action figures.
Of who?
We need to get that little ball as much screen time as possible.
So you're saying he'll get more action in The Last Jedi being away from Octu?
Well, no, that's the opposite of what I'm saying.
Oh, I understand. Originally, you're saying that more figures would have been sold had he gone to Octu to be
featured in what we can conjecture is the main plot of The Last Jedi.
Okay,
is to be with The Last Jedi.
No, I understand. But I guess now, having seen some of the teasers for The Last Jedi, it seems that he's going to have a decent number of escapades. I guess with BB-8's master, of course, is Poe Dameron. So I think this is probably a good call.
Yeah, my issue is who is the one who gets to say that BB-8 goes in the first place. I guess maybe the writers of The Force Awakens and the developers behind that film get to say. They were like, okay, yeah, BB-8 and Rey are going to go to Octu. And I think maybe Rian Johnson was just pointing out the flaw in that. Maybe it's less dramatic and less conniving or less mastermind than it seems. It's like, wait, wouldn't it make more sense to send R2-D2? Because Poe Dameron's going to need BB-8 to fly his X-Wing and everything and do all that stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, that's a pretty minor change.
It is, but I mean, any Star Wars news is major Star Wars news at this point. I feel like right now we are in a huge lull of news. I mean, there's a lot going on. Don't get me wrong. You got the Han Solo movie happening. You have The Last Jedi coming up, and whatever else. I mean, the new what's it called game coming out. The new Battlefront. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening. But that being said, I just think that right now we're just in a waiting period until The Last Jedi comes out. We're going to see the marketing is going to take off huge. June, July, August. We're going to start seeing potato chip bags, Dorito bags with Poe Dameron's face on it. No doubt, the branding is going to get heavy. I mean, I know that Transformers movie is coming out this summer too, right? So that's going to be most of our summer branding experience, and then soon to be taken over in the fall by Last Jedi, just being on every single Taco Bell soda cup that we can find.
Yeah, they always do those cool branding situations, which I never buy in because I don't eat fast food.
Wow, kind of elitist there, Jacob.
I still eat terribly. I just don't eat fast food because otherwise I'd be eating fast food all the time. Did you happen to see the article with some of those behind the scenes, probably leaked shots from the Han Solo set?
I refuse to look at leaked shots, man.
Okay.
I don't do that. I don't mess with that stuff.
Without spoiling anything for you, I guess, then I just want to add, for anybody who has looked at that, and maybe I'll put a link in the notes so other people can check it out if they want to. I really don't know how I feel about the vehicles.
Okay, I feel like I can venture into these waters without spoiling for myself. Are the vehicles reminiscent of the original trilogy? Are we talking, or is it something entirely? Are we thinking Clone Wars era vehicles?
I'm thinking of circa 1960 Earth.
1960 Earth. Okay, so
Yeah.
we got like, it's kind of like is it like a Fifth Element thing where you have like yellow taxi cabs that are very mirror like our experience as humans in our reality?
I don't know. I get this weird feeling, and maybe these shots aren't super reflective of the final product. I kind of hope that's true. I feel weird about some of the photos in here because they honestly look like cars that, my grandfather would have driven when he was young. So I don't know. There'd be cool cars on Earth, but like this is a Star Wars movie. I think it's bizarre.
Maybe they're taking the franchise in a new direction.
That's not the direction I want, because it kind of looks Guardians of the Galaxy more than anything else, or maybe not even Guardians, but
wait, didn't I say I called something was going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy when I think we were talking about a movie? Were we talking about when we had the Ehrenreich episode? Were we talking about the person who's playing Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich? I think I called it was going to be something like Guardians of the Galaxy-esque.
It could be. I mean, we've got the directors working on the movie that could, kind of take it in that more humorous direction. We'll find out.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It could be refreshing. I mean, Disney owns Marvel. Disney owns Lucas. Oh, Disney owns Star Wars at this point.
Well, what about any other news? Is there anything else? Because like you said, it's kind of one of those slow periods. There's not a whole lot out that I feel is really worth talking about.
There's stuff happening, but nothing I really want to talk about.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's just like little bits here and there, and like occasional puff pieces on Entertainment Weekly, kind of like that droid swap, like almost a non-story, just a thing to talk about, remind you that there's more Star Wars coming.
Totally not a story, but we definitely talked about it.
Yeah.
It was enough of a story that we were like thirsty for it and desperate enough to talk about it on our podcast.
And hey, you love BB-8.
I do love
any excuse for you to talk about BB-8.
It's so cute.
It's
just the cutest little droid.
I want more K2. That's what I want. If we can talk about droids, I want more K2.
K2 is dead, dude.
Yeah, but he wasn't always dead.
He's got a very limited window of operation there. He was reprogrammed by the rebels at some point before Rogue One. And
give me that story.
And he was DED dead by the end of Rogue One. So, I mean, he's just... You have very limited window.
There's
you have
time.
like maybe like a mini
story.
series. I would take an animated series about K2SO that takes place for like the week between him being reprogrammed and then sent on the mission in Rogue One.
And Alan Tudyk would be so into that.
Oh yeah, I mean, voice actor Alan Tudyk. He could do some mocap for it, maybe. I don't know.
It'd be cool.
No, I think it's like, I think the slow news period is a lot like the publicists for Star Wars right now. They just need to keep reminding people that Star Wars exists and that something's happening. So that's what these little puff pieces that you mentioned are. They're just like, oh, we got this. Let's give this right now, like for immediate release, this thing. Or, let's have Rian Johnson just do like a quick interview with this thing and give him an update, and they'll take whatever morsel they get from that interview. They need to keep Star Wars present in everybody's thoughts just long enough to get to the fall where they can start heavily marketing the film.
Right.
Because if we forget about it, then, and it just starts appearing out of nowhere again, I don't know. I mean, I don't see any catastrophe on the horizon, but I just think that's just kind of how they want it to be. They want Star Wars to just kind of be this constant in everybody's life.
It has to be. I mean, they've got they're going to have merch to sell. They're going to have big movie tickets to sell. It's got to be kind of omnipresent. This is also the period, not just for slow news, but zero toys.
Yeah, I know you have a huge bone to pick with that.
Well, I don't. Like, I'm trying to cut down on my spending. I've got big boy things to buy now, but I still like to pick up a toy here and there. And so
like
now
your
I'm
helmet.
Well, that's an old toy. I did pick up, for those who don't know, I had to send a photo to Mike almost right away because I couldn't keep it a surprise for very long. But I did buy a pod racing helmet, a life-size pod racing helmet that
Anakin's
I like to wear sometimes.
Pod racing helmet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh man, can we put that in the show notes? That picture.
Okay.
You can take a better one if you want. You can take a cooler picture if you need to take a cooler picture of you in a Anakin's pod racing helmet.
Well, my new roommate is actually a photographer, and she is the photographer that took all those photos of me that you may have seen around the internet where I'm wearing my First Order Stormtrooper helmet. So
that's a great
maybe we'll plan another
helmet.
shoot.
Oh, please do. Please do.
This one is so dorky, though. There's no way to look cool.
Yeah, that's the one that you look dorky in.
One more reminder before we get into the book itself. at the end of this episode, and we will have a chapter marker so you can skip ahead, I have a winner for the Rebel Dossier by Jason Fry contest that we've been running the past 2 weeks.
Oh, I forgot about that one, Jake.
I'm getting rid of stuff. I'm giving it away to the listeners. And this week I have a winner of a contest. You have to listen to the end of the show to find out if it was you. So if you want to skip the spoilery stuff about the book, we will have chapter markers so you can do so, and you can skip right to the end and find out if you won. So good luck.
All right, let's talk about a book that came out a year ago. Ready? Go.
Am I just supposed to riff on it?
No,
things that I remember.
No, you don't have to riff on it. You don't have to riff on it. Okay, so let's just start out. Name of the book. This is called Bloodline. It's written by Claudia Gray. Claudia Gray, she's an established, I guess, science fantasy writer or fiction writer, young adult author for the most part. I feel like. Yeah, I did not recognize a lot of her writings, but she has experience in the Star Wars franchise, one of your favorites, right?
Definitely, like 100% hands down. I love Bloodline, but I think one of my most favorite books so far has been Lost Stars. I love that book to death.
Yeah, I remember you gushing about that book.
She has a very strong voice as an author, and I guess as a... Are we doing opening thoughts? We don't want to do spoilers,
we're just talking,
right?
No, we're talking Claudia Gray now. Let's just we're opening thoughts. We're going to set the scene for this book for the listeners, and then we will jump into spoilers. So if you're looking to,
we'll give you a heads up before we spoil anything. There'll be a fair warning. But yeah, Claudia Gray, big fan. I really love her work. I think she's a very strong author. I think she's very easily readable, even for those who maybe aren't into the Star Wars universe. I think her books, maybe more so than most of the others, are pick upable. I think you could hand that book to somebody who's maybe into the science fiction genre and say, hey, read this book. It's Star Wars, but you don't really need to know that much about the series. This is it's really good writing. I think a lot of people would be more into her books than, say, Aftermath or something by Lucino or Jackson or something like that, where it's a little more dry and in-depth. I think she's a very warm, inviting writer.
Yeah, in general, I think she just knows Leia, and we'll get into that more. And like, She just her voice is very, it fits right into the Star Wars universe. I haven't read Lost Stars. Maybe next year I'll have that one finished, but that's my kind of my MO. Just start a book that's a year old, and eventually a year later I will get to it. This book came out May 3rd, 2016. So yeah, we are very close to a little over a year on this one. But the paperback did come out January 2017. So maybe we could just lie and say that, oh yeah, I picked it up on paperback, and that's why we're doing this review back in January, and it took me 6 months to finish it.
Yeah, that's it.
Sure, that's the one. All right, so the setup for this book. Let's talk.
Well, I think it's also sorry to interrupt, but I think it's also
No.
important to note that Claudia Gray is also writing the next Princess Leia book, which I think is really great, because I think we can say, without spoiling anything, that she really understands Leia as a character.
Yes, she does.
And I think that bodes well for the upcoming book, which takes place way before this one. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, this will be about a young Princess Leia of Alderaan.
That's like the WB series that was supposed to happen back in like 2002.
Thank God it
was like
didn't.
young Leia on Alderaan, growing up, One Tree
Good
Hill
Lord.
style. I never watched One Tree Hill. I don't know what that's about. But
When
I
you say
imagine-
things like that, when you talk about these shows, half the time I don't know if you're serious, because you said something about a Spider-Man show once, and I totally bought into it.
Wait, there was a which Spider-Man show?
I don't know. You mentioned something about like some WB Spider-Man show that I don't think actually existed. You told me it didn't exist, but for like a second you said it, and I thought it was real, and I'm like, how did I miss out on this?
Was it the MTV one? The animated one?
No, this was like, you were talking about something like a One Tree Hill show. So with this Leia one, was this a real thing? Was this actually almost going to happen?
It was in talks.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I remember hearing it in the news when I was young, and now it's being novelized by Claudia Gray. 15 years later.
I hope they cut out the part where she breaks up with her boyfriend and she sits in her room and eats ice cream for 3 days.
Listens to My Chemical Romance. That's not even... No, it would have to be somebody else. It would be like she would listen to Lifehouse,
Ryan Cabrera.
You're losing me here. Okay, so now let's get into quick non-spoiler plot stuff. So we're not doing spoilers yet. So setup for this book. This is a book about Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan. It takes place post-Jedi, pre-Force Awakens. So we are right in that.
It's like 4 to 7 years before Jedi. I can't remember. It's either 4 or 7, but it takes place within a decade of the Force Awakens.
Okay, yeah, it definitely. Yeah, I thought you were going to say it takes place shortly after. I was like, I don't know about that. Like shortly after Jedi, but
it's a ways after Jedi.
We were pretty close to the Force Awakens in this one. It's that sweet spot, it's the sweet spot that everybody wants information on regarding, like everyone wants to know what happened in between Jedi and Force Awakens, wants to know all the details of the rise of the First Order, the rise of Snoke, and you get a little of that in this book, but we'll get into details and spoilers. The big thing about this book is it is a political book.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of harkens back to the prequel trilogy in that sense.
Almost. Less trade negotiations. More, how are we going to form this new government?
Yeah, so, you have the fall of the Empire and Return of the Jedi and what happens afterwards. The New Republic starts to emerge. But what kind of government is the New Republic going to be?
A dead one.
A dead one. A very dead one.
Hey.
That's okay. We've had enough time to mourn the loss of the New Republic in The Force Awakens. But the two camps that emerge after the fall of the Empire, you have the populists and you have the centrists. Jacob, I know you don't have any notes on this. Do you remember the difference between the populists and the centrists?
Yes, the populists are I guess they're more like the Democrats, if you want to relate it to U.S. politics. They're more about the people.
Yeah, I also tried to apply this to our current
political climate.
Yeah, that. And I found it applied in a lot of places, but other places it fell short, and the analogy kind of didn't work for me. But yeah, the populists are about the people, but more so they're about their kind of small government, though. And that's where I feel like the analogy falls short. Like the populace is more like the states' rights kind of advocates. They want each planet to kind of govern themselves. But I see where you're coming from. The populists are more about like individual freedoms, at the same time, and like they seem more progressive in that sense. So that's
progressive,
the
definitely, and understanding like the differences between all of the planets that are a part of this New Republic.
Right, and versus the centrists, who I guess in your analogy would be the Republicans, but also
more, stronger central government is the basic idea.
But that's the opposite though of our political climate, because you would say the Republicans are more in favor of letting the states decide what they want each one to do. Like giving the states their own choices. I feel, I'm not a political scientist in any way, shape, or form. I'm a Star Wars podcaster. But yeah, the centrists in this book, they want a strong core that delegates what happens on every planet.
Yeah.
Most likely, like regulates taxes, and they all come to one place and everything like that.
Yeah.
It is like a lot of big government versus small, but it's hard to figure out where,
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I didn't really do a whole lot of reading with that in mind. I think just for like a basic explanation of what they are, I think you can kind of
it feels like
relate them a little bit at like the core level. But when you get deeper into what the actual conflicts are politically in this book, some of that definitely falls apart. But that's sort of the core idea.
Yeah. Well, our protagonist in this book, like we said, is Princess Leia, and she is a populist senator. So she is one of those that believes that all the planets should have their own individual powers. But she's a very, she wants everyone to get along. She wants a middle ground between the populists and the centrists, which, I guess in a parallel to our political climate, there is, what's the word? It's not opposite of bipartisan. We are like
partisan.
Yeah, we are extremely partisan. And Leia, she understands the problem with a centralized government, the Empire.
Right.
But she also thinks there needs to be like a central communication between all the worlds. She sees the best of both sides of these things, but she sides more strongly with the populace because of how what the Empire was and how she viewed it and her experience taking it down,
I think she believes in like a centralized government in the way of the Republic and the Senate, this new Senate being sort of that power that be over this new Republic. So, everybody has a say, but it's the collective whole that would make any final like large decisions for anything.
Yeah.
Whereas the centrist thinks that there should be, like a figurehead for
Right. That's really it. That's kind of the crux of the matter, is like one person to rule them all versus kind of like a conglomerate like Senate, you know?
Yeah. Which of course is the big conflict, because this is years past the fall of the empire. So there are those within the Senate that still remember those times. And it seems that many of them lean populist, but there are also some that, I think they're used to the tradition of the empire and sort of like what that stood for, like having one, like strong central government that would regulate and protect the galaxy. So that's sort of where the core context lies. And it's interesting to see these older people that feel both these ways, but then have these newer characters coming in that are sort of like, I guess you could say, like the millennials of this galaxy. And, they have their own ideas and they have their own reasons for why the left or the right, however you want to look at that in this world, how those would benefit the galaxy either way. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, the contention of the populace seems to be more like in a centrist government, the larger planets are going to get all the attention, and the smaller planets with the less appealing economies will get ignored, the ones that don't really produce as much.
Or aren't on trade routes, the ones that are just kind of like out of the way.
Yeah, so that's definitely, like their concern. The centrists just want a strong backbone, like you said. They feel like, order, as we're going to see, is a very, very important thing to them. My thing about the way that Gray, that Claudia Gray presents these two parties is a lot like Harry Potter, and like
How
the present.
so?
Well, I mean, I'm speaking specifically of the early Harry Potter books, where Slytherin is a house in that, and it's just like, oh, we have a house that most of the dark wizards came from. Why does this house still exist? We just have this, like, why aren't we closely monitoring this house here? Like the centrists, they're people who are either like the empire, as we find out, or they are, people who value, that kind of thing. There are downright evil people that are centrists, and then there are just people who want, a centralized government. And I feel like it's funny to me that like there's this the populace seem like, oh, like Gryffindor, like we're all happy over here, and the centrists meanwhile are just like this like brooding, like power hungry group of people. I know they're not all painted that way in the book, like but at first the description is just like, these people are just evil. Why the hell are they even given a chance to speak? Like it just seems really funny to me.
That's an apt observation. That like if you think about it, with Slytherin, a lot of the people in that group kind of, they remember fondly the dark times when Lord Voldemort was in power, but like they can't say that. They can't say that out loud because it's taboo. Yeah, no, that's a good observation. I can definitely see it that way.
Gray definitely comes to the aid of the centrists, I think, towards like the middle to end of the book. She really fleshes out that party, and I think in one of the characters we're going to introduce in a minute or so, she really shows the other side and like the rational side. In a really weird way, she shows that. But yeah, I guess the main point of this book is Leia's trying to shrink away from the spotlight, but ends up getting pulled right back into it. The political spotlight, that is. And she has to do so alongside, she's a populist, she has to do this alongside a centrist, a character named Ransom Casterfo, which I have so many notes on this character, and I can't wait to talk about him.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I enjoyed his character a lot, but you're right. It's not just a boring book about intergalactic politics. It is an adventure book, and it's interesting because Leia is an older character now, and she's trying to sort of shy away because I think the stress is sort of getting to her, and
she's got a kid, and she's got a husband,
but she's getting pulled back in. I think for her this is it's still a big deal, but she's trying to pull away, and that's sort of where the conflict comes in and plays into all the politics and stuff. So I think that's about it.
Cool. I think. Should we get into spoilers? I mean,
no, I think that's a good setup. I think anymore we'll just bore people. So let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay. So if you want to avoid spoilers, what I would recommend is you jump to
1 hour, 46 minutes, and 12 seconds.
So yeah, go to that either chapter mark in Overcast if you're using the Overcast podcast app, which you should be using. They're not paying us to say that. I just think it's the supreme podcast app right now.
Agreed. And my chapter notes are really great. You're missing a good part of the show if you're not seeing my chapter notes.
Jake photoshops my face onto so many weird things. It's bizarre and unsettling when it comes up on my phone. But it's definitely worth downloading Overcast if you haven't yet. Yeah. If you're listening in the regular podcast app, just go to that timestamp that I just dropped there for you.
And also, if you're on Android, because I realize we probably do have Android listeners, Pocket Cast would be my suggestion for Android users. Very good app.
Oh, yeah. Not bad. Staying on top of the other side of the fence there.
I have to, man.
We are a bipartisan podcast as opposed to...
Those centrist Apple mother effers.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into some spoilers.
Yeah.
We'll try not to do like too much boring plot synopsis, but just it's going to have to be part of it as we talk about this and introduce more characters. Okay, let's just talk about Leia. Just broadly speak about Leia. In my notes, I just have like just a whole big thing of how Gray knows Leia. Like that's kind of my heading there. Like Leia, Gray, I feel like captures Leia in a way that I haven't seen in any like comic book or anything like that. Like I'm a big fan of the new Marvel series, the new Marvel Star Wars stuff. And I think they do a great job with the illustrations. I think the dialogue is good and snappy, like a comic book should be. But I haven't actually felt like I'm looking at Leia or reading Leia and hearing her voice and Carrie Fisher's portrayal of it. And
that's the big thing too.
Yeah, I think Claudia Gray's like greatest accomplishment in this book is capturing like Carrie Fisher in text form. You know, just. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, almost like that bitter sass, you know, that not like arrogance. It's not arrogance, but it's that sass that Carrie Fisher brought to the character, and like she's not even saying anything sassy, but the way that she writes it comes across exactly how it reads on screen, and that's great. You know, especially since this next Leia book is going to be coming out, you know, post Carrie Fisher. Like I'll still be reading that in her voice, and with like the comic books that never really came across the same to me. Like there are moments where they definitely nail it, but I think Claudia Gray hits it super consistently all the way through. She's very good at writing Leia.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand how this could be interpreted as disrespectful, but I do think this Leia is like almost better to me than Carrie Fisher's Leia in Force Awakens. You know, like Carrie Fisher was fantastic and great, but I enjoyed this. You could call it a performance, I guess, from a character, but like I enjoyed reading this Leia more than I enjoyed watching Leia in The Force Awakens.
Well, I don't think that's like off-putting or wrong in any way, because I think, you know, with a story like this book is about Leia. Like she is the main character of the film of the book, and you're getting her through the entire thing. Whereas, you know, in the movies, especially the original 3 films, she's a central character, but she's by no means the main character. So while you're getting her fairly often, I think you get to know more about Leia in this book. And since Gray has been able to write about her or write her character so well, it's like getting an entire movie about Leia in book form, and I think that's great because you get to hear more of her thoughts rather than, you know, the actions and the things that she's speaking about on film in reaction to events. Right.
So in the process of Leia having to team up with this centrist to go investigate, you know, some goings on in the, is it the Outer Rim? I don't know where it is in the galaxy, but
I don't know. I don't recall.
Yeah, I know. I don't expect you to remember any fine details about this book right now, but yeah, she has to go investigate some weird black market kind of cartel-y type deals going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's some raids, like some weird suspicious activity being carried out by this villain of the book named Rin Riven D, I guess. Rin Riven Die. I don't know. There's no pronunciation guide.
That is as good as I could expect.
Anyway, so we got Leia. We have her teaming up with this guy named Ransom Casterfo. He's a centrist. Do you remember a lot about this guy?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's kind of one of the main characters of the book. So I can kind of talk to like what I pictured him as, you know, like he's supposedly this like, you know, this young hot shot in the Senate. And, this is what I was kind of talking about with, you know, kind of like the millennial feel. We got like these new guys coming in, and I pictured him, you know, younger than even some of the young guys in American politics now. Someone,
I imagine him like late 20s.
Yeah, late 20s, maybe even early 30s.
Do you remember how he's first presented in this book?
No. Was it in the Senate?
Well, yeah, he was in the Senate, but
Okay.
he's just like a guy. Like his introduction in the Senate's nothing spectacular, and he's just like seen as a centrist. And you think he's going to be one thing, and he ends up just so developed and deep and rich and multifaceted. Like he just has so much going on, And going back to kind of like the Harry Potter reference I made before with the centrists, like, as far as I was concerned, in the first like third of this book, this dude was a straight on Death Eater. Like he was just like he was. The way he came off to Leia at first, he's like I think it's impossible to not make this connection. Like he comes across as like a post World War II like Nazi enthusiast, not like a neo-Nazi, but like he comes off
like a
as
Nazi buff.
He collects paraphernalia from the Empire,
Yeah.
Like he has basically a museum, and Leia points it out, like there's scenes of Leia meeting with him in his office to discuss this mission they're about to go on. And he's got like, I don't know, I don't remember the specific items he has, but he has like TIE fighter pilot helmets, and one later point in the book, he's looking for an Imperial Guards helmet. He's going to make a deal on that. Just like a whole lot of weird thing. I imagine he has like scraps of the Death Star somewhere in there or something like that. It's just he comes across as just a dude who is really into the Empire, and you assume that he wanted this, this is something he wanted to keep.
Right.
Like
and he's a centrist, so, that plays into it as well. You think like, okay, this guy wants it to be like it was before. He wants basically a dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Gray wants you to think at first. They give you this guy, and by the second third of the book and into the last one, I pulled this one quote, and I know we're jumping around plot wise, but I really want to talk about this character and give listeners kind of like my interpretation of him, like as a total thing. Is just like, there's this one pull quote. When he thought of the Emperor and Vader at all, he thought of them not as the Empire's backbone, but its pollution, its downfall. And that's a third person quote. That's the narrator speaking from Casterfo's head. That's your third person omniscient narrator that's speaking. And this is not somebody saying this about him. This is not him saying this out loud. This is truth. We have to believe our narrator's trustworthy because they are in everybody's head at once saying the truth. And like, there's a lot of internal monologues being discussed here. And when it comes to Casterfo, you find out like his tragic past, like he was on a planet. I obviously don't remember the details because I never remember details like that. And he came, I believe, face to face with Vader at one point
As a child, right?
as a child. And like, I think his family was killed, at the hands of the Empire. He was like on a planet that was enslaved by the Empire. And he managed, after it fell, to get away. And like, all he wanted was to kill Vader.
And this is skipping around quite a bit because obviously this is towards the end of the book. And just a note on, you said that they introduced him as flat. I do think a lot of this book is written, it's third person, but I think it's mostly from Leia's point of view. So as readers, we're kind of meeting Casterfo at the same time that Leia does. So we're seeing a flat character as she sees a flat person who, has this like childish, uninformed point of view on politics, and that's kind of what we're all led to believe, the same thing that she does. And then she learns more about him as a person, and we do as well, and that's sort of when he starts developing. But just as like one more tie-in to like today's landscape, I really don't know how much our listeners are following U.S. politics and the fringe people that are sort of playing into it, but when I was reading him, I sort of saw him as Richard Spencer, who is sort of like the de facto leader of the alt-right. And
at first you saw him like this?
Yeah, at first that's kind of how I saw him. Like this young guy who has these like really strong opinions, strong ideas, and this influence, with people in power. But from at least my point of view, there are major faults in his point of view, and
major faults.
Yeah, but I kind of felt the same thing because like Richard Spencer in real life is sort of like a Nazi sympathizer sort of person, and that's I think how we're made to feel about Ransom Castrofo in that scene in his office when they're explaining about all the memorabilia and sort of his ideas on a central government. So that's sort of where I came from. But, you know, as the story evolves, like, you really learn more about his background, and you're like, okay, well, he can't like worship Vader and the Emperor because they, you know, destroyed his life. But somehow through that he still believes in a central government, and he thinks that there's good reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, further on, much further on in the book, into his mission with Leia, we see him kind of like, he kind of makes a side deal. You know, he's supposed to go investigate this shady organization, and he sees an opportunity. He's like, oh, well, part of this, like, somebody within the shady organization is selling an Imperial Guard helmet. You know, those red cloaked Imperial Guards from Return of the Jedi. And he's like, oh, there's one of those. Like, and so he goes to grab that helmet, and he finds, you know, himself in a situation where he has to prove his might essentially to this person who's selling on this helmet. And he's in a light stick duel, or like some kind of staff, energy staff or something like that. And, with like one of their top contenders, I don't know. And you can see him totally kick ass. He is like he's well versed in combat, with one of these weapons. And the narration going behind that entire battle, you're just hearing, like, you hear about his past, you hear about his feelings. Like, this is the moment where we've leapt, like, Leia's nowhere near this scene, and this is him all on his own. And so we've taken the narration into his head and are hearing the truth, you know, like, I think that's where that quote comes when he thinks about the Empire and Vader. And, you know, just, yeah, he just, like, I had a lot of compassion for this guy. And, I guess when we talk about the ending, we'll get into, you know, the feelings associated with that as well. Other characters that we're going to see in this book, you know, we have, I mean, the villain, I don't find that interesting at all. There are some, his interactions with Leia are actually pretty great, I think, but I don't think he's that interesting of a character. He's the big bad, but he never really seems that big or that bad. He's like pretty easily dispatched by the end of the book.
Well, I mean, he's just a, you know, a big time mobster, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's never anything really that interesting with them. They're in a position of underworld power, and they don't want their stuff to get messed up. But
yeah, I guess that's kind of my beef with the whole book. Is my small beef with this book was that a lot of the espionage that goes on in this book seems to be filler content, not in quality. I think it's great quality, great writing, but the plot seems to be filler in order to move Leia to the kind of what I see as the climax of this book, which is her being outed, I guess, would you say?
Outed is that's the word.
Yeah, so she gets outed by, I guess, Ransom Castrofo and a couple other people. She gets outed in front of the entire New Republic Senate for being the daughter of Darth Vader.
God, which she can't help.
And that's actually something they bring up. You know, like once this revelation is presented to the entire, like, I guess
everyone.
the entire galaxy, she just gets this thrown out, you know, in front of everybody. Yeah, like once that happens, that I feel like the entire book is a movement towards that one moment. Like, that was Claudia Gray's mission in writing this book, to present like a great, you know, story with Leia in it, but also to show how Leia kind of was brought to like the peak of her political her political career, and then immediately kind of drops off. And that's what we get as the climax of this book.
Well, I think like that when you say filler, I think with a book like this, which I think was this a young adult book? I think this was pitched as a young adult book.
It didn't read like one. There was no like adult content, but
I don't think a lot of the young adult books really have, with the exception of like, you know, the smaller ones, like the individual ones about Luke, like Weapon of the Jedi, for example, Moving Target, those ones. I think a lot of them read more for adults, I think, but you know, it's a young adult, and I think kids are able to handle more and read much better than they were when maybe you or I were kids and we were reading in quote young adult books. But yeah, with that story, which you might think is filler, maybe it doesn't have a whole lot of bearing to the greater story, and it does have its tie-ins with the First Order, of course. But I think the excuse there for this story would be, for Claudia Gray to write these other characters. We have Leia and Castropho, which are important to the overall plot, but then when you get these side characters, which are actually really good, we get like Joe Seastriker, Greer. I liked Greer a lot. I thought, these side characters that went on these adventures along, just kind of along for the ride as supporting characters and assistants to Leia, I thought they were great. I thought they were good characters, and I think that's where another point where Claudia Gray shines. She's very good at writing a lot of characters, and that's what makes it an entertaining book for the whole time. Otherwise, what is it? It's just it's just a story about Leia trying to like find middle ground with all these boring, stuffy people that hang out at the Senate. Yeah,
without this espionage plot, there would definitely be, like it would be, a 100-page book where, just something happens, Leia gets outed and, maybe a First Order reveal in the process and book ends, but Gray manages to create a really lush story here.
Yeah. Like it doesn't start out with Leia like revealing like a statue of Bail Organa or something like that. I remember a statue of Bail Organa being like the central part of the beginning of the book.
Yeah, that is part of it. And then that statue, I believe, gets blown up at some point.
Yeah, was that during the napkin bombing?
Yeah, the napkin bombing. That is pretty early on in the book. The napkin bombing is, they're all like meeting around, like I think a bunch of populists are going to sit down, I guess, and eat some food together. And Leia looks down at her plate and there's like a napkin that just says like, get out or something like that. Or like, run
away. Yeah.
Very dramatic, very like, not like this place is about to explode. You should run now. It's just like run, just like one word sentence there. And she does run and she does not get blown up. But like a lot of stuff gets blown up in the process, and it's seen as like an attack on the populace by the centrists, and
then there's like the alt centrist point of view where the populace did to themselves to spark sympathy in the Senate.
Man, yeah, just when the parallels are there,
they're
there, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah,
because I mean, this was written pre-Trump,
Well, yeah, pre-election. Yeah.
Pre-election,
but that stuff's always been there. I think it's definitely more prevalent now. But you got to give props to Claudia Gray for really calling that stuff out before it got,
Man, yeah. I mean, reading it now, post like inauguration, I guess it was just like shaking my head constantly.
Yeah,
and, unfortunate.
Yeah, but these side characters, like I liked Greer. What did you think of her?
Greer is, I guess, a pilot.
Yeah.
Kind of like an agent, I guess. She's less of a pilot. Joff Seastriker, which is a great last name, reminiscent of Skywalker. So whatever, like, roots.
You got to stick one of those in every book, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Joff Seastriker is a great pilot. Greer is kind of his companion, and but she is like, she's kind of like, I feel like she's almost the spitting image of Leia in her youth, Like the one thing, the excerpt that I have on Greer here, she drinks booze like a champ. Do you remember that one little scene?
On her home planet?
Yeah, like they're trying to get her to like, oh, you got like, I guess the word for balls, like, or like chutzpah in this book is Choobies. And they're like, oh, like, see who's got Choobies here? Like, who can drink this like crazy ass liquor? And she just like, she takes the bottle and just like downs it. Like without flinching, and she just like slams it down the table. She's like, "How's that for Choobies?" Like that was such a vivid way, because like that's pretty early on when we're meeting the character, and like I just feel like Gray has just this amazing way of introducing her characters. In like she's so controlled with it. Like she either tells you everything you need to know about them in one sentence, or she will tell you it in like small doses and sprinkle it in there until you've gathered everything you wanted, and that's strategic for plot purposes. But with Greer, she just gives it all to you at once. This girl can hold her liquor. She is tough. She has seen combat, and she she makes a great like foil, I guess, for Joff. Do you remember Joff is kind of green?
Well, yeah, he was the new guy. Like Greer's been around the block. I think she actually spent time with Han.
I don't.
Or
recall
like
that.
she was. There was somebody in the book. I thought it was Greer that had like spent time and was like one of the best racers in like the league that Han kind of oversees.
It may have been her. I don't have it written down, but yeah.
So yeah, she's definitely seasoned. Like she's been out there, and like she can't like do something anymore because of some sort of like illness or something. She has some sort of like medical issue. Am I thinking the right book?
Bloodburn.
Yes,
Bloodburn.
yeah, Bloodburn. Yeah.
Bloodburn is a disease. It seems to be just like it makes her faint, and she has to have various medical procedures throughout the story.
It's something about like exposure to like fast speeds or something.
Yeah, from her racing or something. And she's maxed out on her medication, and she's like taking too many doses of it, and it's causing her to pass out. And that comes to like, that's her side plot, is kind of just about like dealing with that and dealing with her past.
Yeah, but how great of Gray to like include that. There's no reason to need to include that for a character as, off to the side as Greer. Like, she helps out in the story, but she's not central, but she still gets her own, like, interesting backstory, which is, like, completely original. Bloodburn, you'd never heard of that before in the Star Wars universe, and it's still a cool idea. I thought that was neat. But yeah, that definitely, I love that scene in the book where they go to her home planet and they have that like native barley wine that of course like only the locals can handle, and all the new people come in and it just kind of like reasserts that idea that Joff is definitely like new to this whole line of work.
But he wants action, and that's why I think Greer makes a great foil to him, is because he's just like, there's points in the book where he's like, oh man, like I really want to get like into this. I really can't wait to see some action. I want to kill some whatever is, and but Greer's like, as soon as you see action, you're not going to want it anymore. Like that's something that you should, like, you want to avoid it if you can. And, Joff he's got kind of not a persecution complex, but inferiority complex, I guess. He is, one of his first lines to Greer is that like, it's like, if you think I'm too short, like whatever, like he's basically trying to predict how the people around him see him. So he's like, if you think I'm too short, like shut up, like I'm not, I'm regulation height. I'm like 5'7" or whatever the supposed height is. And that actually made me think back to another Leia thing in A New Hope. When, Luke walks in to the cell that Leia's in, and first thing she says is, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper, or something like that?
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
cheeky.
Yeah, here we have somebody like kind of reminiscing, like kind of flashing back to that, where he doesn't want to seem too short. He's like, Luke definitely seemed kind of insulted in that moment when Leia says that. He's just like, yeah. So I mean, yeah, Joff and Greer was a nice little side plot. I was hoping like romance would have developed, but I guess
there was still a point where like he kind of came to her rescue, which was a turning point, I think, for their relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
We mentioned him briefly, but Han, of course, is in this book, which is...
He makes a few guest appearances, yes.
Very small guest appearances.
All through, like, phone calls. It's like a last season of Scrubs or whatever, or like one of those seasons of Scrubs where, like, JD is not there, and it's like every once in a while, like, someone will call in on the phone or something like that. Like, oh, yeah, there's JD's on the phone right now. Or like, oh, it's when, like, Zach Braff's wife, or like the woman he had a child with on the show, was calling in to check in with her character. That's what I felt like Han's appearances were in this, but they were really great. They were really well written, and just like Leia, I think Claudia Gray has Han nailed pretty solid too.
I don't think he's. I mean, I'm not saying that I can do it, but I don't think he's that difficult to write for a professional author. I think he has.
I don't know about that.
He's got a swagger that's like pretty identifiable.
Dude, nah, I mean, not to get in too specific, but there's this one point. I think it's during a face-to-face where like she's like seeing him at one point in the book, and Han essentially has to do a who me, and like Leia's like, oh well, like a scoundrel, blah 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 blah, and he goes and he just like Gray describes him making like raising his eyebrows and taking his finger and pointing it at himself, and like,
yeah, but that's all you have to do. That's why I think it's easy. All you have to do is like basically rewrite something that he did in one of the other movies that makes him identifiably Harrison Ford.
I know, but I think that's clever. I think most writers would overthink it. Like, think about Wendig in Aftermath, that very brief Han and Chewie scene. There was not much in there besides like maybe calling Chewbacca a nickname or something like that. Like, it was all verbal presentation of Han that you're supposed to think. And this one, like for Claudia Gray to like use like facial expressions and like hand gestures to illustrate. I thought that was just so much more well thought out, like stuff, especially in a book, like, yeah, maybe like in a video game, like, you know, or like a computer rendering, or even in like The Force Awakens, like Han comes through a lot easier, but because of the likeness and the things we can see with our eyes. But like to be able to do it just through text, I was so impressed by that.
Yeah. I mean, she did a great job. I thought it was really great. You know, he is just sort of like a call-in character. You're right about that, even though I don't necessarily understand what you're talking about. A season of Scrubs without JD, I don't think those exist.
Okay, well, maybe I have it backwards, but there was definitely a point where like characters in the show had to check in by phone.
Yeah, I just don't recognize season 9. It's not a thing.
Oh, okay, that's what you're talking about. Han's plot through this thing, I mean, he's essentially, like you mentioned, he's like just kind of doing stuff. This is the beginning of the end. You know, as much love as Gray portrays in this between Han and Leia, you can see hints through this whole thing about Han and Leia's relationship falling apart. Yeah, I mean, the physical distance, for one thing. You know, like the numerous calls that they communicate through.
Well, Han, you know, he's like overseeing these like big races, which is like, you know, this really big deal. He's like a big part of these races and like training people up and like officiating or something. I think that's the idea that we're supposed to get. Rather than smuggling, he's doing something that's sort of legit, but still in his wheelhouse because his wife is, you know, in the Senate. So he's got to play ball and stay on the right side of the line.
Do you see it as like a drifting though? Like he's drifting, like he ended, you know, he's still a hero. I believe he would still be like a general of the rebellion, you know, whatever rank he chose, but he's not, I think it's important to note that he's not military anymore.
No,
you know,
he's like definitely resigned from all that. And I think it kind of goes back to kind of what the conversation between Han and Leia was like in The Force Awakens. You know, like they said that after everything went down with their son, like they both went back to doing what they were good at. But like, I think that was kind of always the case. I think even as they were raising their kid, like once it was like an empty nest, they had nothing to do but whatever it was that they were good at. And for Han, that's ships and space and flight, and with Leia, it's government and trying to make the place a little bit better.
I think Han and Leia's interactions in this book revolve a lot around them trying to figure out what they're going to do with, I guess, their retirements. And, you know, a big thing, like in the first third of this book, Leia is ready to quit the Senate and, you know, jump in, like just like right away with Han into the sunset, essentially on the Falcon, and just go. I think she just wants to like be not a smuggler, but like just run a shipper, you know, just ship stuff with Han.
I think that's the main idea. She just wants to be with Han.
And then this thing happens where, in the book, where after the bombing, they want to elect kind of like a chancellor, you know, not like a supreme chancellor like Palpatine, but they want to elect like a representative, like someone very strong. They're like, and Leia is kind of in the front running for this position. And Leia realizes she has the opportunity of a lifetime. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Like, forget everything she did in the rebellion and stopping the Empire. She has the chance to shape everything that came after it as like not a supreme power, but she knows she has the ability. She's the fair person.
Right.
And
she's in the middle. And since her party is kind of putting her up and there are enough people on the other side that agree with her, there's a strong chance that she would get the job.
Exactly. And she's the only one that she's like, she trusts herself. She's probably the only person she can trust, you know, to do the job right. And, you know, get both sides of the fence cooperating on this one. And that causes her to kind of put her retirement plans on hold with Han. And that's the beginning of the end for them, I think. And I think it's funny that one of the points in the other conversation, Han, he says like he playfully doubts that him and Leia could ever cohabit a small space like a ship together, you know, which is, you know, pretty telling, you know. I mean, they're done by The Force Awakens. And you know, there's a really tough part in this book to read, where Han just kind of flat says, like, when they're talking about old age, Han just goes, I don't plan on growing that old, you know, something like that. And reading that, you're like, oh man, that is so right. You know, you just remember like his, I guess, execution in Force Awakens. And I think Gray definitely had that in mind when she was writing that. There's a lot of like winks to
what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was what's going to happen, but done in a way that like I would totally pass that over if I had never seen The Force Awakens. Like I would never think twice about Han saying he's not going to grow old, because that's something that a lot of people my age say. Just they're never going to grow old. They don't plan on living that long. Old age must suck or whatever, But how great that is and for foreshadowing,
Yeah, she did a great job. She's very good.
Han's character also gives us a little, like we get kind of like a retroactive insight on this one into kind of Luke and Han's relationship. Luke, I'll say really quickly, does not have any role in this at all besides by name. He's mentioned a few times in passing by members of the Senate, and but yeah, I mean, they lay a reflect really quickly on Han and Luke's relationship after Episode 4, after A New Hope. Luke kind of was taken under Han's wing. So between Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope, like a lot of training and piloting and went on. So like Luke closed the gap in his, like kind of pilot training there. And that explains kind of their bond in the Battle of Hoth and like why Han would go out into the snow for Luke, as if there was any like questioning that. There wasn't really, but like I thought it was a nice, this is canonical now, so we are learning more about their relationship and why Han would risk his life for Luke, if he's supposed to be a scoundrel that's kind of only in it for himself, which he's kind of painted as an Empire. So I just like the little backstories we're getting, and kind of seeing how Luke developed as a pilot as well too, because he was certainly talented on his own and gifted, but there was a lot to learn, I'm sure, about different parts of ships or something. I don't know. Han taught some stuff. That's all I'm trying to say.
I mean, even just a little bit of that, just saying like they got closer, just a little hint of that it's always nice, because we don't need to have Luke in this book for it to be a book about the three main characters. It's already about Leia, and because it's about Leia, it's partially about the other two players, her brother and her husband. They definitely have to play a role in her life in some way, and it's good to see that Han kind of started caring about things after A New Hope, apart from money, of course.
Piggybacking off of that, there's a kind of a tie-in to The Force Awakens here that I saw, like not a tie-in, but kind of a parallel. There's a line, Han had taken countless young pilots under his wings during the past several years. That's kind of why what he's doing. He's doing this race thing. And so that made me kind of reflect on The Force Awakens when he offers Rey a job. Because I think a lot of people that I was speaking to about that, like my roommate in particular, he insists that like Han knows the secret behind Rey's lineage and all that stuff. But when I think about Han offering Rey that position in Force Awakens when they land on Maz Kanata's planet, I think of that more kind of as that's his thing. He just does that. He looks for talented pilots, which Rey definitely is, and I think that's what Gray's doing here, is illustrating that like Han just looks for great talent and scouts it out. There doesn't have to necessarily be some like parental thing. I mean, the father figure is definitely there, but as far as Han goes, I wouldn't get overly sentimental about Han asking Rey to jump on board with him.
That's an interesting thought. Like, yeah, that kind of it strips away some of the possible emotion behind that request in the movie, Like my roommate just insists constantly. I mean, when we watched Force Awakens, which is very few and far between, but he's like, it looks like Han knows what's going on there. Like when he's asking her to be like, and I'm like, I don't think that's the case. And this spoke to that, and like just saying like, no, like Han just looks for talent and he finds it. Well, that's an interesting spin on it, because I think just watching The Force Awakens, watching that scene, I think it's meant to just kind of set up an emotional attachment between two characters that's going to get torn away and just make that, moment where Han is killed even more impactful.
Definitely.
Yeah, good thought.
Lady Carice. Do you remember her?
I hate her. I really don't like her character.
This character was infuriating on so many levels. Just like from her actions, but also like the way she's written. I don't think it's a slight to Gray. I think it's intentional on her part.
No, I think she definitely did a great job at, I think, what she should have done with this character, and it totally worked, because I did not like her.
She reads as an Arrested Development character. Do you remember? like she, like everything that this character
like
does.
Lucille?
Yes. That's all I could think about is like Lucille, or no, more about what's her name?
Lindsay?
Yeah, that's Michael's sister, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She sounds like Lindsay, and
Sounds like Lindsay, but now I can only picture her as Lucille.
Maybe like some hybrid of the two, because she's just like, she's very conniving, but also very stupid. Like she's extremely stupid. I just want to stress, like she thinks she's way smarter than she is. Is she a human? I guess is she human? Like I forget her race.
Yeah. She's human. The only thing I really remember about her is that she's like, she's the next in line for some sort of like royalty position that she only gets because Leia turns it down. Which is hilarious because like Leia's just like, I don't give a shit.
Like all she wants is this royalty, like, is to be royalty. She's an Alderaanian, so that's why she's entitled to it. Because Leia is like,
yeah, she wants the status because Leia already has. There's only like, I think if I recall, there are only like so many people left that are part of like these like several royal lines, and there's this seat up for I guess the heir to this other royal line. And since Leia already has the one, like,
she just doesn't care.
She doesn't
Leia
care.
Could not be bothered to take this stupid role. And like,
but this other lady wants it a lot.
Yeah, it means a lot to Lady Carice. Just like kind of like how wealth and power and money means a lot to Lindsay Bluth or Lucille.
Yeah,
you know,
she doesn't want to do anything like for hard work to obtain it. She just wants it, and this is her opportunity to just get it.
Well, I think it makes sense to talk about kind of her, like how because she, as stupid as she is and annoying as she is central to the plot point that I mentioned, which is the crux of this book, which is the reveal that Leia is the daughter of Darth Vader. Yeah. And that reveal comes in her, she has this authority now, this pseudo authority to dig through the Alderaanian archives or something like that, like to go through treasures, and then see, like, she wants the wealth, she wants all like the cool jewelry and everything. And she finds this kind of like last will and testament, I guess, in the archives that is Bail Organa's last will and testament or something like that. And it's, the thing is, it's a message specifically for Leia. Yeah. And it's a hologram, and it basically Bail just says that, listen, your father is Darth Vader and your brother is, I forget if he even mentions Luke. It doesn't matter.
I think he said like you have a brother or something.
Yeah, something like that. But there is this, I would argue it is the most cinematic moment in this book, which is a weird kind of contradiction, I guess. But I think one of the best moments in this book, like to picture and to think about, is this moment that Lady Carice is kind of, she's watching this message. I guess think of it as like a little like music box being held in your hand, I guess.
That's how I pictured it.
Yeah, and it's got a top and it opens and closes. And this music box just like snaps shut afterwards, and I just imagine like a camera kind of panning around this character while she sits in silence and kind of digests this message. And I thought that was like, that's how Gray painted it. She obviously didn't say like cameras and stuff, but like she's like, the box snaps shut and Lady Carice just like sat there and in silence, like pondering this message or whatever. And I thought it was odd because the stupidest character in the book gets kind of like this really, really polished cinematic moment. And what a dummy.
Yeah, it sets her up to either do the good thing or the bad thing, and obviously she does the bad thing.
Well, and the bad thing in this case, as we find out, Lady Carice, this dummy, is tied in with the First Order, and that's how we come to learn about the First Order. And this is the first time we hear it, I guess, in this timeline is through her. She is this, as the reader interprets it, as she would never, cop to this, but she's a lackey. She's just like a pawn, I guess, in the First Order's game here.
I read her as like she thought herself as like a financier and influencer, whereas like the First Order was really just using her to sway things in their direction within the Senate. But
her inconsistency as a character, to me, strikes me mainly is because she's so set on like the first half of the book is she just wants to be royalty. She wants it so bad and wants all these things that comes along with it. But then she also has this agenda, this hidden agenda from the reader and the narrator too. The narrator seems unaware of it until, she says it 2/3 of the way through the book. And she tosses all that royalty aside to out Leia. because, as we find out, she gets kind of dethroned from the process of outing Leia, right? She gets her just desserts. Yeah. Like she outs Leia, but apparently that's illegal or something like that to go through someone's like possessions.
Yeah.
There's some like catch that like some small detail that Leia finds and is just like, oh, by the way, you're disqualified for royalty and it'll go to somebody else now. And that's why she strikes me as a Bluth, is because she has it all and just
pisses it all away for petty revenge,
just to look cool in front of the First Order. Like she thinks she's being good by outing Leia, and then she screws herself over. And like she definitely has that moment where she's like, "What? But my jewels, my blah, blah, blah." It's like she's doing that at the end of it, and it's very satisfying from a reader's perspective to watch that character get her comeuppance and like.
Is this all in my head, or did Leia like send her like a tiara or something at the end of the book?
I don't remember that. If it was, I was busy trying to remember the beginning of the book at the end of the book.
I don't know that, but that'd be funny. So yeah, so I think that's like all the characters. But the things that like really matter. Let's go on those before we close out.
Okay, let's get down to it. And then, and there's some stuff I want to talk about as far as fun stuff as well too. But all right, things that matter in this book. This is kind of like when we did Aftermath, why we like it's like, okay, why is this an important book to read?
Yeah.
And we didn't have a whole lot of reasons like for that. Not that it was a bad book, it's just like it didn't really have a lot of bearing on The Force Awakens or didn't really have a lot to do with Return of the Jedi besides blowing up the Death Star and killing the Emperor. But things that matter in this book, what makes it worth reading if you're trying to put your canon together, or just like bridge the gap. Leia creating the Resistance. This book culminates in Leia creating what becomes the Resistance against the First Order, which she doesn't find the name of the First Order. The reader knows it exists by way of other characters, but this is, this is just the beginning of what we see in The Force Awakens. This is why Leia is kind of a splinter cell. She's an offshoot, not affiliated with the New Republic anymore. It's kind of why she's like a guerrilla army. This is the formation of a guerrilla army, which features Admiral Akbar and Snaps. Snaps in it.
Wix. Yep. Yeah. Quick question on that, just before I forget it. As the First Order kind of comes about, Leia, I think, is probably going to be like one of the first of the Senate and the Resistance to find out the name of the First Order and find out maybe like the origins of the First Order. Do you think that it's going to be Leia somehow that introduces her son to the First Order in a way that, progresses to him switching sides and doing bad stuff and joining Snoke?
Speaking of Kylo Ren, I think my guess is that Snoke, who is not mentioned in this book at all, he has one mention, I think, by name, like Snoke wants to do this or whatever. My guess is that Snoke sees Kylo Ren as a way to get to Leia, or a way to like. I'm thinking that Snoke seeks out thing, and that's based off of also like the dialogue between Han and Leia. Doesn't Leia is like Snoke's always got some was trying to do this and that, or like. They make a reference to Snoke very casually in their conversation, and like as if Snoke reached out and like influenced them. So see
isn't
Snoke.
That dangerous to make like an enemy out of Leia Organa? In a way like that? Like if he reached out to Kylo specifically because he's Leia's son, wouldn't that be like also a really terrible strategic move?
Well, this is, I guess, I'm going to jump off onto another thing that's important about this book from what you just said is this. There is so little Ben Solo in this. There's barely anything on Luke in this, but there's also even less of Ben Solo. But what we don't see off screen is super important here. When Leia's outed as Darth Vader's daughter, the entire galaxy is also learning of this. Mm-hmm. And as we find out, she has not told her son that he is a descendant of Darth Vader. The only people to know, we don't even know that Chewbacca knows that Darth Vader is Leia's father and Luke's father. Like Han and Luke are the only people that were guaranteed know it, and Bail Organa, but everybody else is dead. And so that is something that matters in this book is, and my note on this and the margins on this one was really like, oh, okay, this is the moment. Like this is where it happens. This is where Ben starts to hate his family. And this may be where Snoke saw his opportunity in Ben Solo, saying like, oh, okay, like like this kid was betrayed by his mother. Like Ben, you weren't told of the power that you possessed. You just knew that you were the nephew of a great Jedi, and you were brought under his wing. But did you know that you were actually a grandson of the greatest Jedi of all? So we get a scene post that phone conversation, I guess. And that was one of my beefs with the book, was that we don't get to see that. Like, that's all I wanted, was to hear Ben speak or to read Ben speak and read some interaction between mother and son that gives me some hint as to why Kylo Ren is the way he is, but we don't get that.
No way, man.
We get Leia's tear-streaked face after the phone call as she turns to greet whoever enters her chambers after that. But that is something that is very important. Leia being outed, Leia creating the resistance, and kind of Ben's finding out about everything and like learning about his dark side potential, I feel. So
yeah, to that point though, like, when she's outed, obviously that brings back a lot of stuff for Leia and how she feels about Vader herself. Now that everybody knows, like, not only does she have to deal with, everybody else's thoughts on this, but like, that's going to bring some stuff like flooding back. So what do you think her headspace is like in this book, where she has to have that hard conversation with her kid?
Well, part of it is that he's probably already heard it from the news. If he's, depending on his isolation with training with Luke,
Mm-hmm.
Her headspace is like, oh crap, my son just found out about this thing that I was supposed to tell him. Like, it is my responsibility as a parent and the daughter of Darth Vader to tell someone else that they are also related to Darth Vader, but I failed on that respect. And now I have to go into this conversation. So I think at that point she just feels like she betrayed her son, and she has to deal with that.
Well, that's like the good stuff about the book. I think, meat wise, like, you kind of covered it there.
There's also one more thing I wanted to point out about. We get a really quick flashback from Leia regarding how she feels about Vader. Everything we know about. Everything about the characters know, everything that the New Republic knows about Darth Vader's last moments comes via Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's they make a really great point of that. Like, somebody calls Luke's, like, once Leia's allegiance is thrown into question for being the daughter of Darth Vader, so does Luke's, because they know they're siblings. And, they're like, well, how do we know that he's not like planning a big takeover that after he killed the Empire? All we have to go on is his word. Like the Death Star 2, that was a very, secluded final battle. There's 3 people involved in that. The Imperial Guards were even dismissed from that room. Like, no one got away from that conversation besides Luke.
Well, the Centrists can now use this as ammo to say, like, we need a stronger centralized government so that we can protect ourselves against Luke Skywalker if he chooses to, try to take over the throne, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. And what we also get is Leia trying to imagine, what it was like for Darth Vader to turn, because we as viewers of these movies know what Darth Vader was like when he turned. We have that vision of him with his helmet off, lying and dying in front of Luke. But all Leia knows, Darth Vader just tortured her husband, tortured her, which we get not a super strong description of, but we get, like, she remembers Darth Vader just watching emotionless, because how much emotion can that mask have? But we just, like, a father is watching his daughter being tortured. He didn't know at the time that she was his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, that's she's like, how could this monster have turned back to the light side?
Mm-hmm.
How could there have been any good in this guy who just, like, she just describes herself like screaming. It was like the most intense torture she's ever felt, all that stuff.
And then to, like, come to find out that, like, your captor and...
You're taking your brother's word for it, right? Yeah, like, that your captor, your abuser is actually... He ended up being a pretty good person and saved everybody in the end. Like, that's a weird thing.
Well, in a way. Like, I don't, like... When they say that Anakin came back to the light side at the end of Jedi, like... Yeah, like, kind of, but I don't know. Like, that also could have just been, like, a moment of weakness because he was at the end. Like, just like a last bit of desperation, because he's always been an emotional guy, and I think Anakin always just wanted to feel like he belonged somewhere and to feel like he was important. So, we know from the comics and the books now that his relationship with the Emperor wasn't exactly like, you know, like you're my equal. It was very much like the Emperor always putting down Vader and saying like, look, you're like on the edge of me not needing you anymore. So you need to like do exactly what I say. So as long as you stay useful to me, like you can stick around. So I think like in that moment on the Death Star, when he's finally had the opportunity to sort of throw his master down the well and become important again, you know, the opportunity came on the side of the light rather than on the dark side, because obviously he was at the end. He couldn't just like claim the throne and take over the galaxy. In that moment, he could, you know, kind of cast away all the stuff that like made him feel shitty with the Emperor. And in that moment, like his son was there and the opportunity came to, I guess, do the right thing. But I don't think it was all entirely because he wanted to come back to the light side. I don't think that was like really his thought. I think that Anakin was truly like disturbed in a way that wouldn't necessarily allow him to just come back to the light side because he wanted to. I think he was still a very selfish person, and in that last moment, like he did something that on the face of it appeared selfless, but in a way I think he still ended things the way that he wanted to, in control.
Yeah, that definitely is not put forward. That notion is not put forward in this book, but I fully stand by you in your assertion of that. Yeah. I don't want to get negative about it. Mm-hmm. There was like a couple beefs I had with this book, that being like, you know, we talked about the plot, my feelings on that. I guess, no, I don't want to talk about that. I mean, I'm looking at the bold thing. Like,
I bolded that because I kind of thought that was an interesting idea. I mean, maybe it's a little nitpicky, but you wrote in the notes here that, you know, people know her brother is Luke. So sure, you say surely there's some record of Anakin Skywalker historically in the Clone Wars. So was Vader's identity never revealed? I think that's an interesting thought because that's never explicitly mentioned. You know,
it strikes me as a plot hole. You know, but I don't want to. I don't want to be in. I don't want to discredit Claudia Gray, but it does strike me as something like, okay, so I mean, have we lost all records from the Clone War? I don't think so, but
well, I think the galaxy probably just thought that Anakin Skywalker died.
Yeah, for sure. And so if Luke Skywalker said that, I mean, maybe he came back. We don't really know, but if he came back and told the New Republic that Darth Vader was the one who threw, like he did that, he gave him accurate representation, doesn't mention, you know, that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader, then
well, I think he probably would. If he thought his father had come back to the light side, he would want to, you know, preserve his memory in that way.
Right. And so the logical progression of thought there then is that, okay, so if Luke Skywalker says that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader and everyone's like, whoa, Anakin Skywalker is actually alive and was being preserved in this machine of a body and turned to the light side, wait a second, Princess Leia is Luke's brother, which is known. That is widely known and acknowledged in this book. So would the natural logical conclusion be that Darth Vader was also Princess Leia's father, and like the reveal should not be as big as it is? Is that a plot hole, or am I missing something? I guess it can't be a plot hole because we don't know what happened. I don't know what we don't know what like Luke. We don't know what Luke said to the New Republic. We just know that Darth Vader killed the Emperor, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I also realized that even in the original trilogy, the Jedi had sort of been relegated to myth,
right? And also dismissed at the end of it. Like, yeah. I mean,
like Anakin Skywalker, yeah, he was a Clone Wars general, but who knows? Maybe other families had that name. You know, like there are a lot of people out there with the last name Grant. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're related to the Civil War general.
Right. Like Hugh. He was definitely not related.
Yeah, Hugh Grant. He might be. But it's an interesting idea. I don't think it's necessarily a plot hole. I just think like, if anything, it's just like something lost to time. Like, I mean,
but don't you think that's kind of crappy though? Like that we have to like, because I mean, the only thing that I feel like keeps it from being a plot hole is the fact that we don't know what Luke said and like what is publicly known. Mm-hmm. And Gray maybe cleverly, you know, like he doesn't acknowledge any of that and doesn't come like so that this reveal can be such a huge reveal. But I feel like anybody who knew that Anakin Skywalker was the father of Luke Skywalker would just be like, oh, well.
What you're assuming here, remember, like they're revealing that her father was Darth Vader, not necessarily like that her father was Anakin Skywalker. Like maybe somebody did put that together, but that they still don't know that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader. I think that's probably the bigger reveal. So maybe they do know that, she is the, the biological daughter of a Jedi, and that maybe that's well known in the universe, but it's still a surprise that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader and now she's a descendant of Darth Vader. That's obviously a bigger story than descendant of dead Jedi.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, she does mention that no one knows about her parentage besides Han and Luke. Mm-hmm. So maybe, I don't know. There's just a whole lot. That's like a fine detail that I feel like I would like to know.
Yeah. I can kind of waive it. I can kind of waive that, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to if you want to. This book is excellent, and I think that I think that's a very small beef to have. Another even smaller beef I just wanted to mention, because I spoke so fondly of him at the beginning of this, was Ransom Casterfo's write-off. So I forget, it's stupid, but I forget exactly what technicality they catch him on. I think they just essentially call him a conspirator with the villain of this. They say that, like, there's footage of him, doctored footage. So like somebody did some After Effects on this and just kind of like made it look like he was conspiring against the Senate. And essentially he's thrown in jail for something he didn't do. Which
comes after like his redemption and full embodiment of his character, right? So like we're supposed to feel sympathy for him.
Yeah, Casterfo, Lady Carice, the dummy that finds Leia's secret, she reports to Ransom Casterfo, and then Ransom Casterfo just in front of the entire Senate outs Leia. And then in like a very, like Disney movie moment, comes to her aid. Leia's aid at the end of this whole thing, and like gives Leia the vote of confidence that she needs, like puts her one vote over the top so she's allowed to address the Senate and like speak in her defense or something like that. So like Ransom does redeem himself in that respect, but he also falls victim to the First Order's plot, which is to frame him and make it look like he's a co-conspirator with Rin Riven D, that villain we mentioned a long time ago. And his write-off to me strikes me a lot as like kind of people's anger at like Padme's write-off in Revenge of the Sith. Like you have a character that is not mentioned at all in the subsequent films and is in perfect health from what we see in through all of the prequel trilogy. But then it's just like, not in the next movies and in perfect health, guess I'll die. Like that's kind of her, that's kind of her thing. In episode 3, like, well, she's not in any next movie, so she has to be dead by the end of this. So like Ransom Casterfo did not show up as a Resistance member. I mean, a lot of people didn't, but they just essentially like, and that's a wrap on Casterfo. Like he's essentially led away in handcuffs, and they say to him like, he's like, oh man, I really wish I hadn't reinstated the death penalty on my home planet. Like that's kind of what he says as he's being led away.
Was he actually executed? I thought Leia like tried to say.
No, they strongly imply that like he's gonna get killed. He's gonna be executed.
God, that just sucks.
I know, but like that's what it is. He's like, well, guess I'll die. Like strong character. Well, I mean, I guess Padme wasn't a strong character, but it's like just character, central character, not in anything, not in any subsequent things. Just kill him off. Like write him off.
Yeah. Well, what else? That was some beef, but what are some other cool like things that this book kind of added?
Just really, really like lightning round kind of fun stuff that happens. I thought I found a Clerks reference in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when Casterfo, when he's talking to Leia, he brings up the destruction of the Death Star, and like he talks about how many innocent lives were taken. By the rebellion when the Death Star exploded. And I just thought of like the conversation in the convenience store in Clerks, like all the independent contractors that also died on the Death Star. That was kind of fun. There's the reference to Tauntaun stink in this book not being as bad as everyone says it is. And then, your mind will lead you like, well, I thought they smell bad on the outside. That's what this character who says that is lacking. Oh, yeah, and there's this kind of nod to Rogue One, I guess, months before Rogue One came out, but certainly while it was in development. the centrists have this one quote. There's like a whole bunch of pull quotes from like excerpts from conversations of centrists in the government, and they're kind of hypothesizing that like the Empire had the greatest engineers in the galaxy, and the Death Star was their finest achievement. There's no way it could have been vulnerable to that kind of attack. The Emperor had to have been betrayed by someone on the inside, and that to me is just like that is. I don't know if Gray meant to. She hadn't seen the movie, obviously.
No, like, I mean, they're working with the story group on these books, so, like, they were probably like, okay, and if you can, fit in something cute about, you know, someone on the inside of the Death Star giving stuff away. Obviously,
right.
Like, that's enough that they can, like, say to somebody to put that in, and it'd be fun for, you know, as a teaser, and then also, like, a kind of, like, nostalgic nod.
But again, kind of like Han saying that he doesn't want to grow old. That's kind of something that any reader who hadn't seen Rogue One yet would kind of gloss over and just be like, just to take it for face value. But like, I'm glad I read this after seeing Rogue One.
Yeah, so you could recognize it.
Yeah, I was able to see that and say like, oh yeah, someone definitely, you're dead on, centrist. That conspiracy theory you got is actually very credible. There was another mention of Clone War era Y-Wings in this book, which I thought was a really odd reference. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but like, remember Weapon of a Jedi, the young adult novel we did? As cover in that book, Luke takes like a really old Clone Wars era Y-Wing to do whatever he has to do for the rebellion.
Yeah.
And in this, the Joff and Greer also are piloting a Clone Wars era Y-Wing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe they're just kind of, you know, all over the place. They're just a ubiquitous asset as far as Clone Wars and like inconspicuous vehicles go. But I thought it was like almost a nod, but I don't know why anyone would nod to Weapon of a Jedi.
Maybe
you
not,
know?
but like, you know, when I'm assuming, I don't know this. I'd love to know this, but I'm assuming that the story group kind of like, if the author is like, okay, what kind of ships would be available to these characters at this point, the story group could tell them, or, you know, maybe that information is just kind of like readily available to them. So it could just be that, you know, this was one of the available ships within that time period that she could have chosen.
Yeah. What was what was the character's name in Aftermath that ended up being gay?
I can't recall.
Well, there was an introduction of a gay character in Aftermath, and in this book we kind of see that inclusion also existing. It's not a main character. It's just this one other pilot in Joff's squadron named Ladani. And he is like making fun of Joff for not being able to hold his liquor. Like, oh, you've been hitting the Corellian stuff pretty hard. And then Joff fires right back. Like Joff fires back internally. Like he's like, oh, well, I know Ladani's seeing a Corellian guy now, and he's like, oh, what about you, Ladani? Are you hitting the Corellian stuff pretty hard too? I heard, and I thought it was like a kind of a funny thing, yeah, and you know, like. It's nice to see that inclusion, like kind of going through all, like the all the books as well.
Yeah, a lot of the books.
Yeah. Like my ongoing puzzlement here is the Luke and Leia kiss from Empire Strikes Back. I'm like on a quest, and I feel like someday I just want to. Yeah, I just want to do like a narrative podcast once on just like how weird that moment is, and this kind of contributed to that, and just like. She like it's not meant to trigger that moment, like the memory of that moment in your head, but it does, because Leia's like, oh, she's talking about how awesome Han is and how much she loves him, and being like, Han was so great, he was even willing to let me be in love with Luke. And like, you know, when you know, thinking about that moment in Return of the Jedi, she's like, where Han's like, I know how you feel about Luke, you can be with him, I won't stand in the way. And Leia's like, no, he's my brother, you know, like that. That just, she's like, oh man, what a swell guy Han was. Let it, like, being okay with me being in love with somebody else. And then I'm just thinking like, oh man, but you definitely kissed your brother at that one point. It's just, there needs to be some address of that. You know, like maybe
it'll never happen. Authors and filmmakers are just going to keep putting nods into their media to just kind of keep reminding people that was the thing.
No, Last Jedi is where it's going to happen. They're going to be like just kind of standing awkwardly and been like, so, remember that time you kissed me, Leia? And then that's kind of going to be their reunion.
No way.
I mean, she says that she has no secrets greater than Vader, but I think kissing your brother to make other people feel bad about themselves is maybe a bigger secret. Like, which would she be more embarrassed about? Being the daughter of Darth Vader, or being like, oh, I kissed my brother to spite someone else on the lips passionately? I mean, maybe it's not passionately.
Well,
that's up to interpretation. But.
With both of those secrets, they're both worthy of repressing. They're both known by the same subset of people.
That's true. It's little Chewbacca saw it, and I think C-3PO was confused by it as well.
Yes, he was. But I think
Luke was pleased with it.
I think one of them probably doesn't need to come up again. I think it's awkward enough that none of them really want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's the secret that everyone's going to keep not talking about is just brother and sister kissing. That's fine. One last little tidbit was Hux gets mentioned. General, or was he Colonel Hux or General Hux?
Probably a lower...
Colonel Sanders Hux. Hux is an Alderaanian that we find out. And we find out that he was also in the Battle of Jakku. You read the book revolving around Jakku, right?
Yeah, that was Lost Stars.
And does Hux get mentioned in that book?
He may. I don't specifically recall. I do remember learning at some point somewhere that like his father was a general. So was this talking maybe about his dad?
Oh, well, I guess that would still make Hux from Force Awakens Alderaanian. That actually makes sense because they talk about the general disappearing after the Battle of Jakku, and
that probably would have been his father.
Yeah, and his father probably defects, and then Hux comes up in the First Order, and that would explain the time gap. Okay, so that's cool. So I like the Hux tie-in then. Yeah. That's nice.
No, definitely cool. I think Hux is an interesting character.
Yeah, I hope they give him more time. I know they're giving what's her name, Captain Phasma, some non-helmet time in Last Jedi.
Yeah,
I've read that in the little drops of news.
Which is good, because honestly, it was just weird that they cast somebody so awesome for the role and then, stuck her helmet on her head for the entire movie.
Well, this time she's going to get her stuff. And hopefully Hux does too, because he was... I think his speech in Force Awakens was like one of the most enjoyable moments of like just some of the lesser characters. Just great performance from just like him screaming at the top of his lungs like a maniac to fields of First Order troopers.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good. So, last thoughts, like overall thoughts. You liked this one?
I liked it. I thought it was a little long.
No. It was not that long, Mike. It really was not that long. You drew the sucker out.
I did, but I still would argue that it was long. I like as far as books go.
It's really not that thick.
You have the physical copy. Is it thick?
It's less thick than Aftermath.
I bet the font's smaller. Oh my god. No, but I mean it's okay. When I say it's longer, I guess I don't mean that. I mean it was denser. And that's not to say there are not sections of this book that are super like easy to read and stuff. I mean in general it's an easy to read book, but they're just like there are paragraphs that just go on and on about political stuff, kind of like the things that people found boring about the prequel trilogy. I think Gray had a lot to sift through here. She really wanted to establish the landscape after the events of like Aftermath. She wanted to establish like what came of the New Republic, and she had to set that stage, I think.
Okay.
I understand the need for the density at points. Wasn't a huge fan of it. But the action also, was also kind of that to me. Action wasn't dense, but there wasn't a whole lot of it in general.
Yeah.
There's like some like maneuvering of an X-wing in enclosed spaces.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, but it was very fleeting and kind of like not a whole lot of like blasting and starfighter pilots. There wasn't. I mean, my thing for zero-G combat. It's my favorite thing, but. It didn't happen a lot in this book.
Yeah, I don't know. I think action in general for me is sort of just boring now, and I don't think that's because of like the way that media is created. I think that action is probably better now than it ever has been. But for me, I'm just bored by action. I'm more into like the emotional investment in characters and I guess like the language surrounding it. So like conversations, like dialogue. I'm more into that than I am the actual action itself.
Yeah, but at the same time, I just don't think this book was very suspenseful. I mean, would you agree with me on that at all, or?
Yeah, because I mean, like the most suspenseful or like mysterious parts probably would have been like the Rin Riven D arc, and I agree with you. I wasn't
I mean, there are tense moments for sure, like when Casterfo is trying to buy that helmet, and you're like, oh, is he going to get it? He's going to get the information, and like certainly you feel the stress of the revelation on Leia, but I don't feel like there was ever like any like the biggest reveal in the book is like when we find out that the First Order exists. Like that's like, oh, there it is. Like, I mean, you have the reveal of Vader being Leia's father, but we all knew that. And then you have like, oh, Lady Carice is actually in on the First Order. Sick. Like that's it right there. And that wasn't even very suspenseful. You find out like in Arrested Development fashion that it is like that this dummy is actually part of a greater scheme.
Yeah.
And I think it was enjoyable to see this study of Leia, but this book, and I think all books at this point are going to be held back by that one notion that there are things they're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we want to read most, is the things that weren't like,
if they tie into something that they're planning now, because we've seen with like, the comics and stuff, a lot of the stuff that's tying into the original trilogy, like they have a lot more license to do more exciting things with that. But
there are no surprises to be given. Like there's no spoilers for the original trilogy in the comics. With this, like we still don't know we don't know Rey's origins. I mean, I think it's safe to say that, she's not mentioned at all in this book by Leia. Like there's no mention of Luke having a daughter. So I mean, I imagine Luke would keep that pretty close to the chest if he did have a daughter. But I mean, there's no mention of it. But we don't get to hear Luke speak, I think it's because the story group was just like, listen, we have no idea what we're doing for Luke yet. Or like, we have an idea what we're doing for Luke, but it needs to be of the utmost secrecy. Like, Luke is not your property in this book right now. You can mention him, but he gets no lines, which he doesn't. And Ben Solo, Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker are off limits in this. And like, I don't know if that's the actual case, if she had stipulations on it, but like, that's what we want to know. Like, I want to know how that conversation between Leia and Ben Solo went.
But a book is easily like the least best place to put that information,
I guess. I mean, like, but they're not going to put it in a flashback in the movie. Like, we're not going to see, like, that's the thing, is we're not going to get that conversation.
No, we're going to get another book about that. I mean, something else can come out later. Like, you can't just pack it all into one thing.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, you're right. But it seems so odd that we would miss that. Like maybe we'll get the book after Last Jedi comes out. We'll get the book that talks about Ben Solo's time training with Luke Skywalker. I bet you that'll happen because we'll find more out, and then we'll get his side of the conversation with Leia. So you're right. It's going to come in a later book, but to omit that passage from this book, it seemed to be very meta to me. Like in the sense that like, oh, like this would have fit in this book for sure, but somebody said no to it,
Well, that's based off your assumptions of what's actually going to happen.
I don't know. I mean, the language in the book kind of like indicates she's like, Leia just got off the phone with Ben Solo. She's like crying. I'm like, wow, that must have been a great conversation. Wish I could have read it. Like, and I mean, like, I guess that goes for any revelation that's going to happen in Star Wars. Like, I wish I knew about it right now, But this just strikes me as like a perfect moment to put it, and very odd that they didn't.
I look at that almost as one of those like private moments for a character that I think like the character is entitled to, that the reader doesn't need to know. Like, I guess like the next best example I could give in the Star Wars universe is what happens with Luke and Vader after the Death Star. Vader passes away, Luke takes him onto his ship, and then the next thing we see is, him burning his suit. But, like, there's context there that we're missing. That's like a huge emotional moment for Luke Skywalker, and we're only getting just a tiny peek of that. You're right. Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah, all of the things that I want, I know will come in time. You're right, but yeah, it's always going to be tough to kind of see like writers' hands tied. Yeah, from stuff that they could ostensibly be in this material. Well, I think Claudia Gray or any writer would love to be the one that talks about like Rey's origins. Yeah, everybody. Whoever gets that's going to be super stoked. Yeah, for sure. That's going to be. I bet. I'm sure they've confirmed it by now, and like they just can't announce who's going to be writing like the Ben Solo training book. But I'm sure it's in talks at least at this point, and the story has been outlined. Yeah, definitely. And well, I don't know. That has to come out after the next movie, though. Like they can't they can't even announce it before the movie, because that in itself would be a spoiler. Yeah, that like something like a pretty massive. They're going to have to give a synopsis. They're going to be like, this book details the time of like Luke's time with Ben, and how it all went awry. Like, whoa, it went awry. What happened? And like that's going to make up a whole bunch of stupid
like clickbait articles appear, and
Yeah.
no one wants that. Stay away from the clickbait, guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess my final thoughts on this are, just how well Claudia Gray did with Leia's character. I love that in this book, she's just as strong as she's ever been, but she's more central to a main story for once. And within the story, I like that there's respect for her. And not just from the populist side or the centrist side, but, in the underworld as well. There's that hilarious bit with the Hutt Slayer, and, they're passing around like snuff films of Princess Leia taking out Jabba the Hutt. Like, people are like seeking that as like a collector's item. And did they say that was the only copy of it or something?
Yeah, it's the only copy. He didn't make any copies. The villain has a holo of Leia strangling Jabba the Hutt to death, which would be super incriminating to reveal. But
he has respect.
She's revered in the criminal underbelly for killing someone like Jabba the Hutt. It makes her the Hutt Slayer, like something that is unheard of. She took down the biggest crime boss of them all. And
that's so clever to include. I would have never thought of that. Like, that's just so awesome that she's pretty much respected from all sides. And so
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think it just makes that that reveal about Vader that much more heavy for all of the characters within the Senate and everybody who's watching it on the news. Like, everybody seems to respect Leia from all sides, and that's why she's sort of like the front runner for this head position for the Senate, this temporary head position. And yeah, when it all comes crashing down, like you still feel a lot for her. And I don't know. Overall, I'm impressed. I think Claudia Gray did a great job, and I'm really looking forward to the next one because she gets to, write both sides of Leia before and after the original trilogy. She gets to kind of dip into both those sides and kind of dictate what Leia was like before and after everything kind of like changed within the galaxy.
Right on. Yeah. Good book.
Yeah, good book.
Great review on a book that came out last year and was reviewed by countless other people by then. So this is the 1 year later book review by Bantha Fodder.
The positive to that is a lot of people who listen to our show may have already read it, so they didn't have to do the spoiler skip.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully.
Like me, I try to listen to every Target's Top Shelf on that they have out. They've got a whole bunch now. They have one for just about every novel that's come out so far. They've done a great job, but I download them and then I realize that like I can't listen to it yet, so I delete it and then I have to seek it out again whenever I finish the book, and sometimes I forget and then I have to binge a couple of them. But hopefully for this one, since we're so late, everyone listening has already read the book.
Yep. Well, spoilers are done, and we are ready to say goodbye, I think. Is that,
just about. I have one more announcement.
Okay.
I want to announce a winner of our contest that we advertised in the last 2 episodes of the show.
Who is the big winner of which book is this? The
Rogue One Rebel Dossier by Jason Fry goes to...
I'll put a sound effect in. No, I won't.
Heidi Gaiman. Heidi Gaiman is easily our number one and only fan, and she has won this book. She has been a loyal follower of the show for a very long time, and we're happy to send the book over to her. So, Heidi, if you're listening, please shoot us a DM on Twitter or shoot us an email at banthafodderfm@gmail.com with your address, and I will happily ship it out to you as soon as possible.
Please include your social security number as well. Thank you.
But that's it.
That's it. We will catch you next time. 1 year from today, we'll probably reconvene and review another book that is
Aftermath too.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we'll do our Aftermath trilogy sum up at that point a year from today. Yeah, because that's today. I will start my next book. But until next time, guys, we'll be back at you hopefully a lot sooner next time. All right.
See you later.
Bye.
1 hour. I feel like it should be a Terminator voice. 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 12 seconds, yeah? Okay, I think I'm done now.